Greetings, this is Mr. Nobody with the art of making America great. We are now continuing immigration part 2. Well, let's talk about the other kind, which, as I've said, we have a process, and I've argued that that process can and should be streamlined, but it does have certain essentials that need to be required, and it's all part of how the whole system works. But we've been, of late under an administration that wants to end run the whole thing, that literally rips open borders to just let random anybody's come wandering in. We don't know who they are. We don't know where they come from. We really don't even, apparently, at least our government doesn't even care. And the problem is, it's been somehow identified that a significant number of people who are known criminals, people who have murdered, and we're not talking about someone who might have murdered, 20 years ago, served umpty-ump years in some foreign jail, served their time, done their time, and clearly become somebody who would never murder again. They learned their lesson. I could see somebody like that getting in, and maybe you could have the rare case of somebody who gets wrongfully accused, charged, and punished in some foreign court system that doesn't care whether you're really guilty of the crime. They just want to put somebody in the jug and say, problem solved, and so forth. And you are serving a sentence for some crime you had nothing to do with. Okay, there's those kinds of exceptions. But most commonly, most people would be there because they did something that's criminal. And maybe we can't be totally certain that they might not do it again here. Well, that's one thing. But they don't know that. They don't know. When you got tens of thousands of this and that category, all these different categories of crimes that are known, you see, that's pretty scary stuff. But they don't care. And they don't just open the border and let people pass through. They've been flying them in. Well, we're going to have to fly them back out. Because let's look at what we're going to have to do to clean this mess up. Basically, they need to be returned. So let's talk about that. When we say return, people don't always have the same idea about what deporting is all about. Sometimes people use the word deporting for something that is not deporting. They say, oh, you're going to be deported. And then what do? They take you to some facility somewhere where you're not deported. You're still here, but you're being incarcerated, and typically without even having been charged with a crime. So, you're actually being illegally incarcerated. You haven't been charged with a crime. We're just going to throw you in some kind of a jail or even some of those cages that people used to hear about and so forth. And that's real deportment is you are returned to your home country. And furthermore, you're just deposited free. I discovered that when we used to have a site up in the mountains where certain things had to take place. Sometimes just wild animals would wander in. Mice, field mice, and the occasional raccoon or different animals would sometimes wander into the facility. Sometimes they'd climb up into the equipment and make a little nest there, which might interfere with the equipment. We had to stop that. But did we want to, kill them or whatever? No. All we wanted was to get them out. That's all. We would have, instead of your usual mouse trap, we might just have a little cage where it catches the mouse, and we come in the morning and we say, oh, look. And we take the cage, we dump the mouse out in the wild field somewhere. We're not punishing the mouse. We just don't want the mouse in here, in our building, messing with our equipment. That's all. And it's the same thing. So if somebody's here and they shouldn't be, we just return them where they came from. That's it. Return them. And, and we're just putting them, put it on the shore of their country or wherever else, that's it. Or maybe there's people they know, family, friends, neighbors, somebody who can, receive them back or whatever. But however that all works. But, so it's only legal, and so our obligation ends with that. So, but here's the thing. they're not trespassers, at least not anymore, because at least not since this new administration came in. The Biden administration, I should say, is getting older, and I hope it comes to an end as I say this, but we will see what will happen. You see, they were invited. They were told, y'all come on in, y'all come on in. You know, you throw your front door of your house open and you say to everybody walking by, come on in, we got a party, free food, free this, free that, have fun, you know, dancing, party, you know, souvenirs, come on in, you know, come on in. And they'll come on in. You can't call them trespassers. You invited them. But party's over. Time to go home now. Our obligations to you end when we safely deposit you back where you came from. That's all. You know? It's like making sure everybody who came to your party got home safely with the designated driver, etc., etc. That's all. So it's time for people to go back home now. And there's no harm, there's no foul. You know, if let's say later on you decide I want to immigrate legally, I'm going to follow the process. Fine, you know, you did nothing wrong. You know, you fill out your forms. Were you here? Yeah, I was invited for a while, but then I had to leave. Okay, no problem. So now what are you doing? Well, I'm applying here, examining my background, my record, blah blah blah, and I've got this person lined up here, or that company there that wants me, and they say okay, and they check all that stuff out and says okay, now you can come in legally, and then that's that. You know, actually, I'd say if you're already here, you probably have an opportunity to kind of demonstrate your value to somebody or other, to make a contact that might be willing to help you. You have that opportunity so long as you are still here. You know, I suggest you use it. And then maybe in a few years you can come back legally, assuming, you know, that you are here reasonably and so forth, and that you've justified your existence. I remember when in the Bible Jacob is brought before the Pharaoh of Egypt, and the first question out of Pharaoh's mouth isn't, you know, how are you doing? What, you know, tell me about yourself, or you know, welcome to our country. He says, what do you do for a living? That's the first question. And of course, he had to answer. Me and my family, we're shepherds. We take care of sheep and goat and so forth. And the Pharaoh said, okay, there's some place where you can do that. And there was. And that's kind of how it is. What do? You see, you do something. And so, and if you're doing something productive, you know, that's fine. Now, I got some radical suggestions here too. There's no paid motives for this. The legal have to be paid. If you're going to employ somebody who's here illegally, and you know, you have to pay them by the same scale, benefits, opportunities for advancement, everything as any citizen working there would have. So now, that means they're going to have to justify their existence by being a better worker, by just doing better on the job, and so forth. If they can justify that existence, you know, that's up to you, the employer. You see, and if they cannot, well, you know, then they don't find any work, you know, okay, then we'll go home, you know, we'll find something there. So that's another kind of thing. If somebody actually finds work, I think that's different. And importantly, if you're not crowding out other people from doing work, you're taking the jobs nobody wants to do. That's fine. I respect that. And so forth. And if you actually found that kind of a job, you know, I can see you being patient about sending you someplace else. Or maybe even there might, you know, we still need to do the background checks to make sure you're not a criminal. And obviously, somebody is in effect sponsoring you already. So all that's left is to make sure do the background checks, and assuming that passes through, then you know you could be here. And if you don't, well, then we have to send you back home. So, you know, that's fair. that's reasonable, and that is really the best approach.